Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here on Halachipedia in our section on the prohibition of Ribbis, meaning lending or taking money in interest. So the prohibition of Ribbis is a well-known prohibition where the Torah says that you're not allowed to lend money in interest to one another, nor are you allowed to take that, nor are you allowed to be the one giving that interest on any loan. So tonight we're going to be just taking a general overview and taking a broad look at the prohibition, what it includes, what it doesn't include, and what some of the practical applications in day-to-day life are. So in general terms, the Torah tells us in Vayikra chapter 25 and in Dvarim chapter 23 that one may not lend in interest or borrow in interest. Now, one may think that that means that only money should not be lent in interest, but what makes it a bit more complicated is that the verse says that any form of giving or taking interest is prohibited. So that would include food, clothing, anything that's given with interest is prohibited. Now this makes things kind of complicated because, as we know, people do give things and get more in return. So the question is, how does that work? So just let's take a step back. So what is interest? What is borrowing or lending in interest mean? So what it means is anytime you give a loan and get back more than you actually gave, that would be included in this prohibition on interest. So for example, if I gave away $100 and I got back $110, that would unquestionably be a violation of interest, the prohibition of Ribbis, and both the giver and the taker would be in violation. Similarly, if a person were to do it with food, then there would also be the same prohibition. So if, for example, I gave away 3 pounds of flour and got back 4 pounds of flour, that would be a violation of this prohibition of Ribbis. So it's pretty simple. The definition of Ribbis is you get back more than you actually gave. That is included in this scriptural prohibition on Ribbis. And now the question is, if that indeed is the case, then how do we get over the fact that we have so many industries in which we give and get back much more than we gave? So for example, if a person has a rental and they give a car out and get back the car plus money for the rental, or if they rent out tables and they get back the tables plus the extra fee, the question is, why wouldn't that be under this umbrella prohibition of interest? Because you actually got back more than you gave. You gave some tables and you got back the tables plus the money. And the answer is, there's a very simple distinction. In general, when a person gives away money, they expect to get back different money, but the same amount or more. When a person gives away a table, they usually don't expect a different table back. What matters to them is that they get the same table that they actually gave. So, if something is given away and you do not expect the actual same object back, but rather anything, as long as you are not lacking when you get it back, then that would be something that can pose a situation of interest if you take back more than you actually gave. But if it's something like a table or an object where you do not expect to get the same thing back in return, then in that case there's no problem of interest because it's more of a rental than a loan. So that's a very simple distinction, and a really fascinating example of how these differences manifest themselves is in the following example. So let's say a person lends his friend a car, and it's with a full tank, and it's with an empty tank. And then the borrower gives back the car plus a full tank, so that would seem like a prohibition of interest because you got back more than you gave. So the answer is, why is that not a problem of interest? If you get the extra gas back in return for the some gas that you gave, that's a prohibition of interest because you weren't expecting the same gas back. But for the actual car, which is an object that you expected back the same one in return, there you would not have a problem of interest. Hope to catch up in the next session on Ribbis. Thank you so much for joining us.